Please have a seat. We got a lot of great folks with us here today, and we're happy to be back. We do have our Lieutenant Governor, who you all know well from being in Miami, Jeanette Nunez. We have our Department of Transportation Secretary, Jared Perdue, Nicola LaCourie, Executive Director and CEO of Florida's Turnpike, Stacy Miller, District 6 Secretary for FDOT, and then we have Juan Sosa, who's a police officer with Miami-Dade Police Department. He's going to talk about our proposal today, what it means for him. We have our Senator, Ileana Garcia. We have Representative Danny Perez. We have Representative Demi Busada Cabrera. Representative Alex Rizzo. Are you a senator now? You got elected, right? So he got elected. He didn't have anyone even run against him. I mean, imagine that. Brian Avila, who's going to be a senator after the election, and then Representative David Barrero. So we appreciate all that they do up in Tallahassee to look out for the folks down here in Miami-Dade. And one of the things that we've been fortunate with Florida is, we kept the state open. We saved so many jobs and businesses, and people have had way more opportunities. In spite the efforts of some down here to lock kids out of school, we made sure the kids were in school, had an education, and we were able to avert a lot of the really devastating learning losses that you're seeing in California and Illinois and some of these states that really perform very poorly. Our unemployment rate today is less than it was prior to COVID, and we have more people employed than we did prior to COVID, which is not true in a lot of these other states where they haven't even recovered back to where they were, particularly when you talk about things that are important in this state like hospitality, restaurants, hotels. Some of those areas in different parts of the country have not gotten even close to back. In Florida, you look at that industry, it's doing better than it's ever done, and that means people that have the ability to put food on the table for their families. It means small businesses are able to succeed, and the result of all of that, even with having one of the lowest per capita tax burdens in the country, no state income tax, and having just signed the largest tax relief package in the history of the state, with all of that, we have by far the largest budget surplus in the history of the state of Florida, $22 billion. $22 billion. So we ended the last fiscal year of $102 billion for the budget, $22 billion surplus. Now they've had to finally say, you know what, this revenue's coming in so much faster. So they revised that in August. But even the revision, we beat the revision. That was a very high revision. And so our fundamentals in terms of, having a free state, making sure we're respecting taxpayers, spending your money wisely, all that stuff, has been very strong. So we have this big surplus. And the question is what do you do with that? Obviously, we're having some away for a rainy day because, I think Biden's doing his best to plunge this nation into a deep recession. And I hope that doesn't happen, and I think Florida will be better than some of the other states. But these are just things that prudence would justify, you take precautions for. But the biggest bite has been the inflation with the cost of groceries going up, energy, utilities. Gas is still very high. They act like it's so low because it has gone down because it was at heights we had never seen before. And we were fortunate. I mean, it's stupid that China's doing this. They're locking down in China still. That's causing demand globally to be lower than anticipated. The supply problems have not been solved, and so we anticipate by the end of the year beyond, you are probably going to see an increase in the price of oil. I hope not. I hope we see low gas prices again. But the reality is this is something that's biting. Housing, has gone up. Pretty much anything you can think of that a consumer or a worker would have to do has gone up under the Biden presidency. And so in Florida, our budget is like budget dust compared to what they're doing in Washington. They're printing trillions and trillions of dollars, and they were warned that if they did that, it would lead to inflation, and yet they did it anyways. So people really, I think, want relief, and so we did $1.2 billion in tax relief for this current year, which was very good. Things like, we have a 5, a 4, and a 2-year-old, so we're done with the 5 and 4. The 2 still a little bit in diapers. No tax on diapers at all now, or these baby supplies for the whole year. And we're going to talk more about doing that in future days, about what we're going to do going forward to make some of this stuff permanent. We did the back to school. We're going to have the fuel tax go in. We're going to reduce the fuel tax starting October 1st, something I really thought was important. So we've done a lot of stuff. So then I'm like, okay, we have the surplus. What can we do to help folks? So the first thing that we did, I think I announced it last week or the week before, is for SunPass and Florida Department of Transportation facilities, which is not everyone, and unfortunately it's not a lot of the ones we have here in Miami-Dade County, but for all of those, I was able through administrative action to institute a toll rebate program. So the commuters who are doing a certain number of tolls a month are getting an automatic 25% reduction in rebate in the amount of tolls. We have surpluses in the turnpike and all this, so we were able to do that and return some of that money to the folks who are having to pay the tolls. And so that was a nice relief. But it was not every single toll facility, because we didn't have the executive authority to do that when you have expressway authorities in Dade and Central Florida and whatever. So we said, all right, this is a good idea. I'm glad we did it. It's relatively short term. We need to do something bolder with the help of the legislature. And so what we're proud to be able to announce today is, with part of that budget surplus, we are going to seek major toll relief for every single toll facility in the state of Florida. This will be for all commuters throughout the state of Florida. It'll be over 750,000 people that will be able to realize this savings, and that will include everything here in the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. So under this proposal, any commuter that uses our transponders like SunPass or EasyPass and that have a certain number of tolls, we think probably about 40 for just showing how many people are doing it every day for work, but the legislature could obviously move that around if need be. But if you are a bona fide commuter, you're getting a 50% discount in your tolls for the entire year, and that's going to make a big difference. So this will save the average commuter throughout the state of Florida $550 over the course of the year. And honestly, down here, it may even be more, because some people spend a lot of money on tolls every single month. And so you take whatever you're doing, you slash that in half. I know there's some people that spend thousands on tolls, so that's going to be $1,000 plus tax relief for those folks. And so we think it's important that, we've been good stewards of the economy and the taxpayer dollars. We've been blessed to have a lot of people invest in Florida. People have wanted to move here. Our revenues are strong, and we need to return those revenues back to taxpayers. And this toll relief, I think, is one of the most effective ways to do that. I think it's going to make a huge difference for people. There were so many people who, when COVID hit, they had the luxury of just working on their laptop in their pajamas at home. And that's fine. I mean, if your job allows you to do that. But, you have these cops, these firefighters, nurses, they've got to go and be there in person, and they've got to go. And there's no way they can avoid these tolls. So they get hit with it every single day. And so now, and the thing is, if we implement this the way we're proposing, you won't even need to do anything. It'll be FDOT will automatically credit you every month, and so you will just see the savings right there on your bill. So I'm excited about it. I think it's something that's gonna make a difference. And if you look, we actually have it on the screen. But you're talking about really significant things around here. All the stuff with the airport, Dolphin Expressway, all of that qualifies. Rickenbacker Causeway qualifies. All the main toll roads in Central Florida, there are many of those, all of those qualify. The initial proposal that we implemented with the executive through FDOT, that had some of the I-75, I-95 Express. It had some of the other ones that we, as the state, control. This has all of those in it, and will also include all the ones with expressway authority. So this is meaningful, and this is just one thing of many that we're going to do in terms of tax relief, because I think we did $1.2 billion this year, which was the most in Florida history. We're proud of that, but I'm telling you, we're going to beat that next year and then some. And I think that a lot of folks are going to be very, very happy with what we're doing to stand up for taxpayers. So look forward to seeing this get a lot of support throughout the state. I think obviously here, a lot of these representatives, they understand the burden that some of these tolls. They tried to do the GMX thing and everything, and that got caught up in the courts. But the reason why the legislature wanted to do that is because they wanted to try to force some toll relief for folks down here. So this is one way we're able to do it out of Tallahassee by offering these great rebates, and it's going to save people a lot of money. And hopefully that, I would like to see the inflation go down. I'm not sure Washington is changing their policies, unfortunately. This Inflation Adjustment Act, Reduction Act, they called it, that actually is adding 87,000 IRS agents. That's going to go after a lot of middle-income people, small businessmen, handymen, people that have their own businesses that are, sole proprietorships. They don't have the resources to fend off these audits. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be hurt by this. You also look, they're taxing gas and different types of energy in that bill. So we see rising energy costs, and what's their way to do it is to tax it. Well, guess what? If you tax it, you're going to get less of it, and that's going to be more expensive. So that's not going to reduce inflation. Now you have this thing with these student loans that may be $1 trillion, and even President Obama, some of his economists said it's like adding gasoline to the inflation fire, because you're putting this on the backs of taxpayers. And if it's $1 trillion, that's going to be an average of $6,000 per taxpayer in terms of the liability. How much are they asking the universities to take from this? Zero. The universities are the ones that have benefited from all this student debt. They raise tuition, and they take all the proceeds and they expand their administration and add more people for bloat. They're not adding better education with this, and they've made a fortune off this for years, and they're not paying a dime. I think the colleges should be responsible for this. They're the ones that have pushed a lot of the students to do it. It should not fall on the taxpayer. But I'll tell you this, in Florida, one of the things I'm proud of, since I've been governor, state universities, there have been 0 increases in tuition for our state universities. So you can go, it's not the same at every state university, but the average is like $6,300 for in-state tuition for a Florida resident. Where are you beating that anywhere in the country? I don't think you are. And of course, we have things like Bright Future scholarships, which you can get all of that taken care of, or a lot of it taken care of. So we're very proud that we have options for people that's not going to thrust them into the poorhouse with $100,000 in debt. And so a lot of students in Florida have said, okay, we have affordable tuition. I can do Bright Futures. I'd rather do that than take out $100,000 in some private university out of state. And so they do that because they don't want to be a lot in debt. And then it turns out, the debt is good. They're going to have to pay the debt anyways because of what they're doing with this. And so I think it is going to exacerbate inflation. And so what we're going to continue to look ways to do is give people relief from what's going on in Washington's policies and the Bidenflation. Here's toll relief. There's going to be other tax relief that's going to come down the pike. And I think it's going to be a really, really historic year of wins for taxpayers and toll payers throughout the state of Florida. And so with that, we'll bring up our Lieutenant Governor, Jeanette Nunez.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here with our governor and our Secretary of Department of Transportation, along with our legislative leaders. As you heard the governor in this wonderful announcement, we are focused on continuing to bring relief to Floridians. And in Florida, we're proud that we have consistently been in search of solutions that are going to make a difference for Florida families. And that includes tax holidays, of which there are many throughout the state of Florida throughout the year, our Freedom First business policies, and also encouraging workforce education and making making sure that we have the skill sets, the high-wage, high-demand jobs, and we're going to provide the workforce for those particular jobs. And so last month I had the opportunity to join the governor at his initial announcement with the SunPass Savings Program. And while that was very exciting and we were extremely excited to see that we were going to be able to bring toll relief, as the governor knows, we've talked about it at length. I understood in particular here in Miami-Dade County that many of those roads were not impacted by that initial SunPass Savings Program. So that's why I'm thrilled that the governor has expanded that and has called upon the legislature to work with us to make sure that we're bringing relief. Because as a Miami resident, I can tell you, I too understand the plight of the toll payer. And that is why over the past decade, I have worked with many of the people that are here today to bring accountability, in particular to this Expressway Authority, Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, to bring reforms, to bring transparency, and to bring relief. Because at the end of the day, people were paying thousands of dollars, and it impacts families in a real significant way, especially under the crushing weight of Biden inflation. And so we're excited to be able to bring this relief. We know that one of the major issues in our community is that of traffic congestion and toll relief. And so for somebody in West Kendall to work downtown, not only are they paying an inordinate amount of tolls, but they're also suffering in traffic, sometimes upwards of an hour to an hour and a half one way. And so we recognize those impacts, and we are continuously working to bring relief and to do something meaningful for those that are suffering under the weight of the tolls. And so here in the state of Florida, as you all know, many people work across county lines. When you look at where you travel to work, not only within the county but outside county, Glades County, for example, over 67% of that county travel outside their home county for work. Martin County, over 32% travel outside their county. Broward County, over 21% of people in Broward County leave Broward County to travel for work. And in Miami-Dade, it's under 10%, but it still is significant, especially given the size, the breadth of our county. So this expanded toll savings program has the potential to positively impact families here in South Florida and beyond, and we're excited to be able to announce it. We're excited to be able to work with our partners in the legislature, and I'm joining the governor and calling upon our friends to take this proposal and to make sure they can bring important relief to the average Floridian as we continue to suffer under the policies that are impacted by D.C. Thank you all very much.
And one of the things that we'll be probably unveiling probably within the next week or two is also because we have surplus. You know, we did the biggest budget for Florida Department of Transportation, I think, in the history of the state this year, because we know, and we always have said, you know, we're a growing state, we need to get ahead. But I think it's been, you know, a very strong amount of people wanting to visit here. I mean, just the traffic on the road from all the visitors that we have has been incredible. So we're going to look at, yes, we'll fund the budget and all that again, but is there certain spots where we can kind of do a moonshot, put some extra money in immediately and start moving some projects ahead that will have some meaningful relief for people? Because there's certain parts of the state, it doesn't even need to be in rush hour where you could end up in really bad traffic. And so, and it's a little more challenging here because of the way everything's been built out and laid out. But we obviously recognize here in Miami-Dade there's need for that as well. So we're gonna work to address it. Okay, FDOT Secretary Jared Perdue.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis and Lieutenant Governor Nunez. What a privilege to be working with a governor that continues to lead Florida in a big way. A couple of weeks ago, we were able to unveil the SunPass Savings Program, which brought immediate relief to those using FDOT facilities. And now today, we're here to announce this bigger toll relief program. And this proposal will bring more relief to more people across all toll facilities in the state of Florida. So we're tremendously excited about this. I'm excited to work with the legislature and our partners on this proposal as we work to implement it. And we really appreciate the opportunity to serve our customers and serve the people of Florida as we continue to implement innovative and exciting new ideas under Governor DeSantis' leadership. So thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, Nicole LaCourie.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and join in the announcement of this exciting proposal. As Secretary Perdue mentioned, the Department and Florida's Turnpike Enterprise keeps our customers as our core focus. We are thrilled to be a part of this proposed toll relief plan as a way for us to give back to our customers and show our gratitude for their continued support of our system. Florida's Turnpike Enterprise looks forward to new and innovative ways to better serve Florida families. It is a pleasure to serve Governor DeSantis, Lieutenant Governor Nunez, and the people of the state of Florida. Thank you.
Okay, Juan Sosa, where's he at? All right.
Thank you, Governor, for having me here today. It's actually an honor. My name is Juan Sosa. I am a police officer, and I do live in Miami-Dade County. I'm here today to represent my family, actually my elderly parents. My dad, who's almost 80, my mom, who's almost 70. My dad, although technically retired, even though how many times my siblings and I have told him to hang it up, you know, he still works as a butcher. He drives long distances, and he every day to and from work. So does my mom. They drive from Homestead into the Miami Beach area and Delray. It's pretty far, 5 to 6 times a week. I know my dad loves his job, and like I said, as many times as we try to make him hang it up, he doesn't want to stop working despite of his age. It gives him a purpose and ensures his independence. Unfortunately, as inflation continues to get worse and worse and gas prices at a record high, the tolls are getting harder and harder to manage. I managed my parents' SunPass accounts for years, and every month they're paying about an average of $320 to $360 for tolls. That's more than they pay in gas. You know, I'm constantly getting text messages, emails, notifications about their low threshold replenishment amount. It's $40, $40, $40. And I get about 8 or 9 of these a month. It adds up fast, and it's getting much harder and it's getting extremely unaffordable. I know that the toll relief announced by the governor today for frequent commuters is going to be significant for my parents. For me, and as well as for many other families throughout our region. Thank you, Governor, for your efforts to help us keep more of the money that we make and earn in our pockets, and for making this state a better life for all of us and all our elderlies and my family. I appreciate it. I want to tell you one more thing. From my family to yours, God bless you, and God bless our state of Florida.
Thank you. So you see why this is important. I mean, to have elderly people paying that type of money in tolls in a time when everything is going up, we have a responsibility and a duty to step up and give relief. And so I think that this is going to be something that's going to be very well received by the public and then by their representatives. And this is just one proposal. We're going to do a lot more because we see there's going to be a lot of different ways where we're going to be able to help lessen the burden on folks, you know, as they struggle with rising grocery costs and utilities and housing and everything that has really gone up, you know, higher than any time in my life on all of these things, and has gone up at such a rapid pace. So we're here to relieve those burdens within the confines of our authority, and this is one way where we can get it done. We think the initial program was very successful. People liked that we did it. But it didn't cover all the tolls based on our, you know, we had limited authority. When we get the legislature involved, we can take care of every toll in the state of Florida, and that's going to be a great day for commuters all throughout the Sunshine State. And it's not just here that's got tolls. I mean, you know, there's bridges in the Panhandle that have tolls. I've reduced those tolls too. You've got a bunch in Central Florida. There's a lot of commuters that get hit with this, but clearly down here, you know, you can get hit so many different times. So, okay, yes, sir.
Those of us who are driving here on all of the expressways, we will see a reduced rate when we drive through the tolls.
So basically, you'll use your pass, you'll go through, it'll just rack up however many you do. Then at the end of the month, you'll just get, if you reach the threshold of where you're a commuter, you will just get a 50% credit, and it'll just be put right back on your account at the end of each month. I think that's how we're doing the current program. Obviously, the legislature can do that how they want, but I think when you do it that way, you're really providing relief for the commuter. You know, quite frankly, if a tourist comes and pay the tolls, I want them to pay the tolls. I don't want you guys paying the tolls. So, you know, I don't want to necessarily make sure that, you know, we want to make sure they're doing, you know, we're very fortunate that when you lead the nation in tourism, you know, those folks pay taxes, and that's part of the reason we can have such a low tax burden, you know, statewide, and be able to do a lot of this. Hey, Glenna.
Hi. I actually have two questions. One on
Sure. I will.
So for the tolls on the river mapper, where they are relatively lower, where did that loss of revenue?
We're going to fill it. Yeah. So that we're taking the surplus and we're filling the lost revenue, because, you know, a lot of these tolls, what happens when they do the roads, those are attached to different types of bond obligation. All that's going to be met, but it's going to be met out of our surplus rather than the pockets of commuters throughout the state of Florida. And we think that that makes a lot of sense, but there's not going to be any non-payment on what needs to be done to fulfill all those obligations. And your other question?
About the felons who were arrested for voting illegally. So now since last week, we learned a little more of the detail of how that happened from the third-party volunteers telling them that here's your application and you're good to go, to the state okaying it, to the county sending the card 2 years ago, before it was the department realized what was happening. So now that we know all of these things, is there, I would like to look at way in on possible fixes, so that truly ineligible people don't go, and people who didn't intend to do something wrong don't go.
Well, right. I mean, I think that clearly those were illegally cast votes. I don't think there's any question about that. In the state of Florida, convicted sex offenders are not eligible to vote. And people convicted of homicide are not eligible to vote. So that's just the reality. So those were, I think everyone agrees, those were 20 votes cast in 2020 that were illegally cast votes. And that we did do the voters of Florida approved a constitutional amendment 2018 saying if you're felon, you can have your rights restored automatically to vote, but not for those two categories. And so that was obviously the law. Everybody knew that. So the question is, if you have like a third party group or someone telling somebody, yeah, you know, you're a convicted rapist, but you can vote, that obviously is false. And that may expose some of those groups to liability, because clearly, if you're involved in some type of voter mobilization, you know what the law is or not what the law is. And if you're doing that, you're making a conscious decision to evade the law. And here's the thing. It's like, you know, some of these groups, you wonder where their values are. I mean, you're relying on convicted rapists to get what you want at the polls. No, thank you on that one. I mean, I think that that's wrong. So our view is we want all voters who are lawful to vote to be able to vote. But if someone votes illegally, they could have canceled your vote out. How do you feel about that? They could cancel out the vote of some World War II veteran who fought, you know, to preserve our freedoms. And so it is important that we're upholding the law. And I think this will help show people and disabuse them of maybe any lack of clarity that they have about what the rules are in Florida and what the rules are not. Javier.
Governor, I just want your thoughts on this. Florida Democrats have been railing into the Lieutenant Governor over this anti-Cuban, anti-immigration rhetoric. They had a press conference this morning. What's your thoughts? Because they haven't denounced Carla Hernandez-Matz's recent sympathies for Fidel Castro as he passed away.
I think it's just bizarre that they're trying to equate people that fled communism from Cuba under things like the Cuban Adjustment Act and Pedro Pan to someone running drugs across the southern border. How dare they make that comparison? And the reality is, the fact of the matter is that if you look at this running mate, we had a decision to make, and I think there were a lot of important decisions during COVID we made decisions to lift people up, and we were better off for it. But no decision was more consequential, probably in terms of the long-term health of our society, than whether you had kids in school or not. And we made that decision. We were the first big state to say, June of 2020, every kid has a right to be in school in person. And this running mate, Hernandez-Matz, she fought us tooth and nail. Christ fought us tooth and nail. They wanted these kids locked out of school. And if they had their druthers, those kids would have been locked out of school for a year, just like in California, just like in some of these other places. That would have caused irreparable damage to their upbringing. It would have ended up having huge consequences coming downstream. And so that alone is disqualifying when you're wrong on one of the most important issues that this country has had to face over the last few years. The people that cheerleaded for school closures were wrong. They were grievously wrong. In Florida, we got it right, and we're proud that we got it right. And yes, when you're putting out tweets saying about Castro's death, he's just a political leader that people in Cuba are mourning, that's a disgrace. That's an insult to the people in this community who've had to flee. That's tyranny. It's an insult to the people that have seen that island destroyed. And here we are decades and decades later, and it is a third world country, has so much potential. And you look at the contrast between South Florida and Cuba, I don't see people getting on rafts to go from Key West to Cuba. I've never seen that. I know they want to do that the opposite because they understand how important freedom is. Yes, ma'am.
Following up, yes. So just to clear up, because there's so many questions. So the program approved by the legislature and your administration never intended to bus immigrants from Cuba and Venezuela away from Florida to other states?
So it doesn't apply to refugees, and I think Jeanette was talking about refugees, and they were trying. It does not. It applies to people illegally crossing the southern border who want to come to Florida or who come to Florida, or even if they, because a lot of them say they want to, and if they're here illegally, then that's a much different thing than being a refugee. So it does not apply to refugees. But I'll tell you, when we got that money, what happened? Texas decided to get in the game. Texas is busing to New York City. They're busing to D.C. They're busing to Chicago. And guess what? These are sanctuary jurisdictions when it suits them. Now they're upset that this is happening because it creates all kinds. You cannot run society with just having a open border where there's nothing that's being enforced in terms of the law, where you have narcotics like we've never seen before. Why is fentanyl overdose the #1 cause of death for people 18 to 45 now? It's because the supply has exploded, and yes, China's making it, no question, but they're bringing it through the southern border. And so you see that, and you think, why would you not want to change course there? Why would you not send the signal, you know what, having a border be overrun is not what a sovereign country does. And there may be some people that show up there that do have bona fide asylum claims, but 99% do not. And we know that they don't, and yet Biden is basically opening it. So there's a huge difference between those two things, and I know they know that, but they're trying to conflate. But I think they're honestly hurting any argument when you try to conflate somebody who fled communism here to say somebody who's coming. You know who's having a field day? These drug cartels are having an absolute field day with what's going on in that border. So the goal of this is by bringing the problem, and I've been down to the southern border, those towns, and those are all very blue-collar, hardworking communities. They had always been Democrats, not anymore because of what's going on, because you just have people storming, and they can't keep up with it. They're just overwhelmed. When that then starts to impact these other jurisdictions, well, they don't like it very much. So the goal, I think, with what the governor's doing in Texas, what we would do, with ours is just cause a change of policy. Say, okay, we are going to go back to remain in Mexico. We're going to go back to having these agreements. We're not going to let the border be overrun. And we had that in effect prior to Biden taking office. I mean, this is not rocket science in terms of what we need to do here.
Could you share your decision-making on whether or not to suspend Miami-Dade County Commissioner Joe Martinez after felony arrest, and what role the lieutenant governor might be playing now? We hear that she is pretty active in kind of sorting out the
So we have not, so a lot of people have proposed new candidates for that. I have not had a chance to be kind of briefed on all the potential candidates for that. But obviously, when you have the situation like that, there is going to be a new commissioner, and we understand that. There's a question about whether the person has to live in that district. I think probably. Some people say not. But, as a matter of good governance, it's probably good that that's the case. So we're going to go through all those issues. I am going to get briefed on it this week, and we'll probably have a decision in the not too distant future. All right, guys, I got to take off. I got to get back, see the missus. Thank you.